Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Thursday Thought. Today is Thursday, May the 15th, 2025, and already we are halfway through what is arguably one of the most beautiful months of the year, when the whole world seems to awaken and display its beauty in the trees and the flowers. Once upon a time, I wrote a poem about spring, and that's the one I'd like to share with you today. I have noticed through your comments and your responses, which I appreciate very much, by the way, and all these shares, and it just really touches my heart when you do that. And so I've noticed that you appreciate knowing the backstory to the poetry and what has inspired it. So do I, actually, when I read poetry. I'm very interested in that for other poets. So I'm happy to share this with you. This particular poem came to me in the circumstances where I had to determine whether or not it was safe to travel home from work that night. For many years, I commuted a long distance from where I lived because I had found the house of my dreams in the beautiful Beaver Valley. But I really liked teaching in the community of Rexdale, which is a suburb of Toronto. And I really loved the color, the variety of the multicultural community, the richness of it, and the warm reception of the families in that community. So I had a long commute for a few years, but I didn't really mind it at all, except in the winter. Because as many of you know, Grey County is definitely in the snow belt. But fortunately, I have friends and family en route, and I could always stay someplace if the travel was going to be dangerous. So this one particular Friday night, I had heard from my very reliable weather reporters that Grey County was embroiled in one of its iconic blizzards, and I'd better stay put until at least the morning. So fortunately, one of my dear colleague friends from school invited me to stay with her. And I was happy to do so for a number of reasons. Her name was Rajinder Bal, and she was an excellent poet and also a very good friend and also a very good cook. So I knew that I could anticipate a delicious Indian meal while I was there. And as we settled down by the fire after dinner, she started to tell me about her son's upcoming wedding. And I knew I was invited to this wedding, but I'd never been to a Sikh wedding before, so she thought I might be interested in knowing in advance some of the things to expect during the ceremony. And after a lovely evening, I went upstairs, and I remember looking out the window and thinking, I will be very glad when spring arrives and I don't have to factor the weather into all my travel plans. So I went to bed, and I awoke with quite a start, actually. And I remember running down the stairs at the same time Rajinder was running up the stairs, and we met on the landing. And I said to her, Rajinder, I dreamed a poem. Spring is like a bride. So I offer you nature's vow. Down an aisleway, hushed with apple blossoms, a bride named Spring appears, in such iridescent beauty that a world is moved to tears. How long the land had waited for this joyous celebration, through frozen months of darkness, when it seemed that all creation had abandoned thoughts of tenderness to embrace a life of scorn, a solitude of bitterness, encased in icy storm. Then the mystery of renewal softly whispered gentle words, and the longing born within the earth recognized the voice it heard. Besought by ancient ritual, spring blushes her consent to wed a world with waiting arms in a gown the sun has lent. Through a veil of light she casts a glance at snow that begs to stay, as the hand of winter, chapped and worn, slowly gives the bride away. So I'm going to close today with reference to another poem that was written as a song by Amanda McBroom. She wrote it as a song, but she'd never recorded it before Bette Midler chose to do so. And I would suspect that many of you know that I am referring to the song The Rose. And I really love this particular poem because it makes very effective use of a poetic element called metaphor, which many of you will know, or maybe if you've forgotten. It is when a poet compares two things by just saying that one thing is another, for dramatic effect. For example, it's different than a simile, which uses the words like or as. Happiness is like a crystal. With metaphors, the poet simply says that one thing is another. And I'm going to use just certain parts of this poem to help illustrate how effective that is in language, and also just as a reminder how resilient our capacity for love is. Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and you, its only seed. When the night has been too lonely, and the road has been too long, and you think that love is only for the lucky and the strong, just remember, in the winter, far beneath the bitter snow, lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose. So as we go forth into another week, I hope that you're very awake to all the signs of spring bursting out everywhere, and that there's always a song of love somewhere in your heart. I'll look forward to seeing you next week, and in the meantime, have a great time, and goodbye for now.